So good afternoon, everyone. After a full day of presentations, lots of contents, Geeta was keynote speaker this morning, and you had lots of ideas, and now we are ending the day, so we'll have a short presentation by me, where I'll try to share some elements which will come in resonance with what Lou talked about. We had with Lou a kind of world-class series of experimentations, experiences which were shared. Desis, it's very funny when I hear each time the word Desi, because of course you can guess with my name that I'm of Indian origin, and Desi means I'm back to the country. So I just landed back to the country this morning at 10 a.m. and I'm listening to Carla's Desi, and Desi was something which was triggered by Ezio Manzini, and the first time he mentioned Desi, I was always thinking about India. So I'm happy to be in India and honored, and thanks WDO for having me here. So what I'll do is, let's see, what is interesting here, up, direction. The title of my short presentation is Design Appetite, because one of the challenge we have with many of our activities with students is how do we create the envy to go on, to continue. Now, design appetite is also maybe an obsession of mine, because I'm nowadays in a culinary school, and I use lots of culinary metaphors. So jumping on that and abstracting on what you saw from the two presentations, I'll go into all this with what I call a kind of triple point of view. The point of view of a design practitioner, because I've been busy with design for the last 20, 25 years, and practice is something which occupies 60 to 70% of my time. Design education, because I've been visiting lecturer, professor in different types of schools, and I'll briefly touch upon that. And design association practitioner also, because I'm busy with Interaction Design Association for 12 years, and nowadays I'm the president of that. Before getting into that, how many in the rooms are full-time educators? If you can just raise the hand. So, half of the room, roughly. Shall I assume that the other half are non-full-time educators, or do I dare asking, are there non-educators in the room? Okay, always interesting. But as a provocation, I would say all of us are educators. And the challenge we have here is, how do we create new spaces for sharing knowledge? And I guess everybody knows this character. Yeah. So from 1997 till 2003, I was the head of new media of the publishing company of Tintin. And my job was to translate story spaces which were in comic books, paper, towards screen, towards exhibition, towards interactive stuff. Now I'm bringing these two elements to connect with this third one, which is also something which is connected to the title. Claude Lévi-Strauss telling, cooking is a language through which society unconsciously reveals its structure. And in India, we have that in each and every village, each and every region, each and every state. There are so many specificities, so many nuances, so many subtlenesses that when we talk about design, let's replace the word cooking by design. Design is a language through which society unconsciously reveals its structure. And when Lou, you are mentioning that in that innovation fair 3 years ago, it was not 99% techie, but a palette of different things. My belief is this. And now the challenge is, how do we convey that to our students? How do we make them understand that there are multiple temporalities where they need to grab different types of knowledge and not only be consumer? Because one of the challenge we have is 20th century has made us a society of consumption, and we need to go back to what I call a society of conception. And conception is about design, is about making. A quick run, IXDA, Interaction Design Association. If you don't know about that, allow me to do a small pitch, because IXDA and WDO, we think that we are brother and sister, and we need to work together. IXDA was born as a mailing list in 2003. People were talking on email about the frustration of the state of design in 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now IXDA, Interaction Design Association, is a bottom-up association of 120,000 designers worldwide with 220 groups. And we have community, we have events, meetups, we have an annual conference, we have an education summit. You'll find everything on ixda.org, but what is mostly important is we launched 2 years ago World Interaction Design Day, and we did this one, this year, the last one, on September 24th. And in one day, we had 100 events organized on the planet. This is an example of how do we create spaces of knowledge beyond the regular classical spaces of knowledge of which you all in this room are experts. We try with this one to architect spaces where there can be emerging knowledge being shared. And these were all the places where all these conversations, meetups, hackathon took place. And IXDA Hyderabad had one with IXDD. We had in Bangalore, in Chandigarh, in many places in India. So I'm sharing this to connect what Carla was talking about, DESIS and network. It's bottom-up, it's networked. Lou, it's more centered and spreading. It's looking at the excellence of some models. And here we are in between. We are trying to merge different ways of creating knowledge. And our next annual conference will be in Milano, early February. If you can make it, there will be, I don't know, is there anyone from Milano here? Yeah. If we don't see you there, then there is a problem, just to put some pressure. Yeah. So we'll be about 1,500 people talking about interaction design. And we have a design education summit of 2 days, where we are exploring questions which are beyond the usual how. Because if we look at many conversations in design scapes, we are focused too much on how, not enough on why. And I know, Gita, you are an obsessive person about the why. And I'm trying to. And we are doing another thing end of the month in Bogota. I don't know if some of you are going to Cumulus conference. And is there anyone from Colombia here? So 29th of October in Bogota, we are launching the Design Education Research Days, where we are aiming to map topics important for designers today and tomorrow. Revisit the matrix, because we have been working on matrix where IXDA and Cumulus have been doing some workshops and trying to identify different skills and competences and the tensions between that, and connect agendas between different education institutions, which you are already doing here. And I think that we should interconnect our efforts and express what practitioners are busy with. This morning you mentioned about some gaps, and so I would like to share with you this one. I don't know if some of you know the work done by Daniel Fallman. It's about, imagine we are at the center, And in this framework, we need to push the practice agenda. We need to push the design studies agenda, and we need to push the design exploration agenda. What do we mean by this in terms of positioning? Design practice is we need to talk to business. Someone this morning was telling we need to learn to talk their language. Let me be provocative. We need also to teach them to understand our language. We need to create an interface spaces, as you are mentioning, Carla. So design practice is how are we talking with commercial organizations. All of us who are non-full-time educator are partly busy with that. Design studies is pushing the ontology of our practice, go beyond the habitual déjà vu. And design exploration is try to go beyond all the paradigms we are all busy with. And that is where we have some challenges. How do we create spaces to explore research agenda? Because research was talked about this morning in many places. Research agenda which are not at the service of business, but which are pushing the questions connected to our human condition on this planet. And here you have the 17 SDGs coming up, but 17 SDGs are only one framework, and we need to come with some others and push that. So if we put that all together, we have all these practices you are busy with. And it goes from taste. What does it mean tasting today? Not only in the food, but taste in the aesthetics, taste. What is taste and beauty in interaction modalities, in non-permanent physical stuff? These are questions we need to develop, what I would say, the critical thinking of our students, of our educators. So I was telling we need to move from consumption to conception. We need to move from the usual banal cliché of be curious to articulate that with be curious and be critical. Because if you're not critical, you won't be curious enough. And we need to create all these loops. So these are the kind of questions we are busy with, where we talk a lot about objectivity versus subjectivity, experimentation versus analogy. But I think in our education system, we rather need to do plus rather than versus. And this is what I would expect the conversations to go towards. We need to think about, everybody knows this, by John Maeda 2-3 years ago. If we look at many of the curricula in schools, we are busy with all this classical. But what is in your pocket, because I assume all of you have a smartphone in your pocket, things are changing every second, and we don't control. But we need to build critical thinking of our doers, designers, taking this into account. Scale, not scale of space, only scale of time. The multiplicity and the complexity of notion of scale. So I'm back to design appetite, and we need to create more design provocations and see how we can articulate this provocation. And one way I use, and here I'll be quite anecdotal, the way I use to provoke my students is we begin by this. What do we see here? This is a page of a comic book, of a graphic novel, but this is much more. This is the page of the interface of your screen on your device. What does it have? It may be the page. What does it have? It has 3 dimensions. One which is you have an overall overview of something. Then you have fragmented knowledge, and most importantly, you have the knowledge in between spaces. And that is where I push my students to work on, because they need to work on what we call in storytelling suspension of disbelief and develop point of view. And these are the challenges where we need to work again and again, because contextual change is happening so much. we have seen with all these examples, that we need to create the kind of backbone with our students where we push thinking about, of course, this, which everybody of us agree, but how do we make that concrete? How do we avoid the confusion between prediction and anticipation? Because many, with AI, ML, and all this predictive machinery, there are lots of assumptions. How do we create questioning about these assumptions? How do we create critical thinking about autonomy versus automation? This is also a question we'll need to have in our education agenda. And we are back to something which was talked this morning partly. I'm a fan of abstraction. We need to have more and more abstraction-led people. Transaction is something we need to work on. We don't understand enough the modalities of transaction. And Carla, you mentioned Amartya Sen, and we have much more thinkers to bring in the designscapes and push our thinking about notions of transactions and re-challenge the notions of interactions which are changing day after day, month after month. So these are some of the elements I wanted to share, and then we can have some conversation about that. Thank you.